I'd only spoken to her twice before, the kind of passing greetings you give your neighbor when you're taking out the trash or dragging groceries in too late. She always seemed too composed for the mess of suburbia. Mid-40s, I think. Never saw her laugh, but something about her eyes looked tired of keeping quiet. I'm 23. Just moved back home with my brother after school didn't work out. The house next to ours, hers, had always been the clean one. Shuttered windows, perfect hedges. A little too quiet. That day, I was outside fixing a loose fence board, sweating in the heat, trying to look busy enough to avoid the ache of another pointless afternoon. Then her screen door creaked, and she stepped out like it meant something. "You handy with things?" she asked, barefoot on the porch, holding a mug she probably didn't drink from. I turned. Kind of. She glanced at the tools in my hand. Then down the street, nobody else around. "My kitchen sink's been dripping for a week. He said he'd get to it." Her husband. I'd never seen the guy. She hesitated, then added, "He's out of town. Work thing." She didn't wait for my answer, just opened the door wider and tilted her head. "Why don't you come in while he's away?" I followed her in, careful not to let my boots scuff the tile. The house smelled faintly like vanilla and something colder. Maybe that perfume older women wear when they want to feel like themselves again. She led me to the kitchen. Small drip. Nothing major. I crouched under the sink, pretending to know more than I did, while she leaned against the counter and crossed her arms, watching me. Not with suspicion, just curiosity. Like she was trying to remember what it was like to be looked at. "Your brother talks about you," she said. I tightened a valve. "He talks a lot. He said you paint?" I nodded. "Sort of. Haven't done much lately." A pause. Then she asked quietly, "Why not?" I didn't have a real answer, just shrugged under the sink. When I stood up, she was closer than before, her arms uncrossed now, mug on the counter. The drip had stopped. We both looked at it like it might start again. She smiled a little. "Maybe I'll owe you lunch." "Wasn't a big deal," I said, but my voice caught. Too much air in it. Another silence. Then she said, barely above a whisper, "Most people don't do things unless there's something in it for them." I didn't know how to answer that. Her words felt like they weren't about the sink at all. She turned to get something from the cupboard. Her shirt rode up just slightly, revealing the smallest curve of skin above her waistband, and I looked longer than I should have. When she turned back, her eyes flicked down, then met mine. She didn't call me out. Didn't smile either, just held the look a little too long. Outside, the neighborhood stayed quiet. Heat rippling off the sidewalk, birds somewhere far off. But in that kitchen, it felt still, loaded. Then, as I reached to gather my tools, her fingers brushed my wrist. Soft, quick, but not accidental. "You don't have to rush off," she said. And that was the first moment I knew I wasn't just helping the neighbor. I was crossing into something I couldn't walk back from. She made tea, not coffee, and slid the mug toward me like she wasn't sure I'd take it. "Chamomile. No sugar." "I don't like the crash," she said, sitting across from me at the small round kitchen table. "With caffeine, I mean." I nodded like it mattered, but I wasn't really hearing her. I kept looking at her sleeves, how she kept pulling them down over her wrists, even though it wasn't cold. Her name was Elise. I only learned that today. My brother always just called her the neighbor's wife, like her entire identity was tied to someone else's schedule. She didn't wear a ring. "It's weird, right?" she said suddenly. "Letting someone in while my husband's gone." I looked up from my mug. She wasn't smiling. "You invited me," I said, voice lower than I meant. "That doesn't make it less weird." She said it like a joke, but her posture didn't match. She was sitting too straight, chin tilted, like she was trying to read me without looking obvious about it. I wanted to ask what she meant. I wanted to say, "Are you lonely?" But I didn't. I just kept thinking about how quiet the house was. No music, no TV, no ticking clock. Just the low hum of the fridge, and her fingers tapping once against her mug. I glanced at the fridge photos. No kids. No real family shots. Just clipped notes and a printed calendar with travel dates, his travel dates. I could see the week he was gone blocked off in blue ink. She hadn't added anything to it. No reminders, no plans. "I used to be an art teacher," she said out of nowhere, almost like a confession. "Before I got married." I stopped after a while. I looked at her. "Why?" She laughed under her breath. A small, tired sound. "It didn't fit the life we were building." I nodded, but something twisted in my chest. She looked at me for a long second, then added, "You'll learn this. In your 20s, everything feels like it has to be figured out right now. But it doesn't. And then one day, you wake up and realize it already was." That did something to me. The way she said it, like she was telling me not to rush, while clearly mourning the fact that she did. "I should go," I said, standing slowly. She didn't move. "You could stay a little longer," she said softly. Her voice wasn't flirty. It was quieter than that, almost careful. I hesitated. My hand was still on the back of the chair when she stood too, walked over, and gently touched my arm. Just her fingertips. Just enough. And that was the moment I nearly said her name out loud. Not like a neighbor, not like a friend, but like someone I'd already dreamed about. But I bit down on it, swallowed it back. And then, she didn't let go. Could have left. I should have. But she was still touching my arm, and the way her fingers lingered, not holding, not pulling, just resting there like they had nowhere else to go. It made my chest feel tight. I told myself I was just being polite, that staying a little longer didn't mean anything. But I didn't sit back down. I leaned against the counter instead, arms crossed, trying to feel more in control than I was. "You okay?" I asked. She looked up quickly. "Why wouldn't I be?" Her voice was too sharp, a reflex. Then she caught herself, and her tone softened. "Sorry, that came out wrong." I didn't press, but she seemed caught between two versions of herself. The version that let me in, and the one that didn't know what to do with me now that I was standing there, not leaving. "I used to be better at this," she said quietly. "At what?" She gave a strange little smile. "At knowing when something was going to ruin me." She wasn't looking at me when she said it. She was watching the window over the sink, where the breeze moved the curtains just slightly. I don't know if she meant me. I think she did. I opened my mouth to say what, I don't even know. But then her phone buzzed on the table. She didn't reach for it. Didn't even glance. Just closed her eyes for a second like the sound hurt. Then it buzzed again. Finally, she picked it up, checked the screen, and set it face down. "Your husband?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her lips parted. Not in surprise, but like she was choosing her words very, very carefully. "No," she said. "It's nobody." But the way she said it, soft, guilty, made me think nobody used to be somebody. I started gathering my things again, avoiding her eyes, telling myself I was being smart. But every time I looked up, she was watching me. Not seducing, not inviting. Just watching like I was something she couldn't quite stop needing to see. And then, I dropped a wrench, clattered against the tile, loud, sudden. We both flinched. She bent to help at the same time I did. Our hands met, not brushed, met, full contact. Her palm against mine, fingers curling slightly, holding for a second longer than they had to. Neither of us moved. Then the front door knocked. 2 hard raps. She stood up fast. Too fast. Her face changed, posture straightening, voice dropping into something practiced. "I'll get it." I stayed frozen near the sink, heartbeat thudding in my ears. She opened the door just enough to peek through. A pause. Then, "Hey. No, now's not a good time." Another pause. Her voice dropped lower. "No, I'm not alone." She shut the door gently. When she turned around, she looked at me like she didn't know whether to apologize or say something dangerous. Then she said, "You're still here." I swallowed. You told me to stay. And she stepped toward me. Only half a step, but close enough to feel it. Neither of us moved again. She didn't touch me this time. Didn't need to. The air between us felt different now, heavier. Like we were both waiting for someone to speak, and neither of us could do it without shattering the whole moment. She stood near the sink, arms folded tight across her chest like she was trying to hold something in. Her eyes didn't leave mine. Finally, she said, "You were supposed to leave after the sink." Her voice was steady, but her throat moved when she swallowed. "I know," I said. "You told me to stay. That was a mistake." "You didn't mean it like a mistake." She turned her head at that, but not away, like she wanted to argue but didn't have the strength to lie. Then her tone changed. Not cold, just quieter. More herself. "You think this means something to me," she said. "But you don't know anything about me." I stepped closer. "Then tell me." Her breath caught. "I don't want to be someone's mistake," I said. "But I haven't stopped thinking about you since you opened the door." She blinked hard. "Once." "You don't get it," she said, voice cracking just a little. "I stopped being someone people think about a long time ago. That undid me." Not the words, the way she said them. Like she didn't want comfort. Like she'd already decided she didn't deserve it. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I wanted to tell her I noticed everything. How she never finished her tea. How her hands fidgeted with her sleeves when she felt exposed. How she hadn't let herself smile fully since I walked in. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, "Then why did you let me stay?" She stared at me for a long time. And then, so softly it felt like a confession, she said, "Because when I'm around you, I don't feel like I'm disappearing." That silence after? It wasn't empty. It was charged. We were close now, too close. I could see the freckles on her collarbone. The way she was breathing a little faster, trying not to show it. Her mouth parted just slightly like she wanted to speak, but her body was warning her not to. I didn't reach for her. I didn't move at all, because I didn't know what this was anymore. I didn't know if I was saving her from something, or falling into it with her. Then she asked, barely audible, "Do you think I'm a bad person?" I blinked. That was the moment. Not the touches, not the glances, the question behind everything. She wasn't asking me to answer. She was asking if I still saw her, after all of it. And I didn't know what to say. "You're not a bad person," I finally said. "But you're scared of being one." She didn't nod, didn't speak. But the way she looked at me, it was like she wanted to believe me more than anything. Like it was something she'd been waiting for, and dreading. I thought that moment would last longer. I thought we'd stay there in the quiet tension, eyes locked, hearts racing. But then my phone buzzed in my back pocket. I glanced at it more out of habit than interest. A text from my brother. "Did Elise ask you to fix the sink? Weird. She called me last night too." I read it twice, then looked up at her. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was reaching for her mug, the cold tea she'd barely touched. Her fingers trembled just enough to notice. "You asked him first?" I asked softly. She flinched, just slightly. "Yes," she said. No explanation, no defense. "But I came instead. You didn't just come fix the sink." Her voice was clipped. She turned away, staring out the window again like there was something urgent in the trees. Something shifted then. Not the attraction that was still there, thick and undeniable. But the story I'd been telling myself started to wobble. Was I here because we saw something in each other? Or because I was the one who answered? "I didn't plan this," she said. "You think I set it up, but I didn't." "I didn't say that." "You're thinking it." She looked at me, eyes sharp now. Not angry, just cornered. Like she knew this part of the story didn't make her look good. And she hated it. "I was lonely," she said. "And I wanted someone to notice me. That's all." "And now?" I asked. She swallowed. "Now I'm trying not to want more." I stepped forward. Not to accuse, not to leave, but because something in her tone, the rawness, the way she didn't sugarcoat her own need, pulled me toward her again. You could have picked anyone, I said. You picked me. She nodded once. I know. Why? Her voice was barely a breath. Because you looked at me like I still mattered. The front door creaked then. Loud. Sudden. She froze. I turned. But it wasn't her husband. It was her sister. A woman I hadn't seen in years. She stopped in the doorway, keys still in hand, eyes darting between us. Elise, she said slowly. Is that Liam? My stomach dropped. She knew me. I knew her. From years ago. A wedding. Elise's wedding. Her sister looked back and forth between us. The silence, the closeness, the heat in the room that hadn't gone anywhere. And Elise, she didn't deny anything, didn't explain, just said one word, steady and soft. Yes. Her sister didn't say anything else, just stood there, one hand still on the doorknob like she hadn't decided whether to come in or back out quietly. Her eyes moved between us again. Elise, with her arms hanging useless at her sides, and me, stiff as a nail, like I could still pretend none of this had weight. Elise, her sister finally said, slower now. What are you doing? It was a gentle question, not an attack. That somehow made it worse. Elise looked down at the floor, then toward me. But this time, there was no mystery in her expression. Just exhaustion. Honesty. What I haven't let myself do in years. Her sister stepped back, nodded once, and closed the door behind her without another word. And then it was just us again. The silence was thick, but not charged like before. Not full of maybe. It was settled. Like something had cracked open and now we had to look at the truth inside it. I'm not some fantasy, she said softly. I get moody. I shut down. Sometimes I go days without speaking to anyone because I don't think I'm worth the effort. Her voice broke a little, but she kept going. I wanted to feel chosen, just once. Not needed, not tolerated. Wanted. She paused. Looked at me like she was bracing for something. I used you. I didn't move. I know, I said. Her lips parted. You're not angry? I admitted. But then I realized. I wanted to be used. By you. Came out rougher than I meant, but honest. There was no hiding in it anymore. I wasn't just here for the sink. Or because my brother didn't come. I stepped toward her. No heat this time. No game. I stayed because I wanted to be near you. I still do. Her eyes welled, but she blinked it back. I'm not free, she whispered. You feel like you are when you're with me. That stopped her. She exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath since the door first opened days ago. Then what happens now? I stepped even closer. No touching yet. Just presence. I don't know, I said. But if you ask me to go, I will. And if you ask me to stay, I will do that too. She looked at me for a long moment, not searching for lies but measuring the risk of truth. Then she reached for my hand. Not desperate, not rushed, just steady. Stay, she said. But not like this. Not in shadows. Her voice was raw but certain. I need time to end it right. To be honest. No sneaking. No guilt. I nodded. I'll wait. And for the first time in days she smiled, not sadly. Not cautiously. But like she finally believed something good could still begin even now. Took 6 weeks. Not long in the grand scheme of things, but long enough to wonder if we'd imagined it all. Elise didn't text. Didn't call. I didn't push. She had asked for space to end it right, and for once in my life I didn't try to control what came next. I just waited. Then one evening, as the sky turned that deep blue before night fully settles in, I saw her on the porch. No makeup. Hair tied back. Same loose sweater she wore the first day I came in. She waved. Just once. Across the yard. Inside her house, Our house now, if I let myself believe it, things felt changed. Still hers, but not heavy anymore. The silence wasn't tense. Felt open. She handed me a mug of tea. This time, peppermint. I remembered, she said with a smile. I looked around. The travel calendar was gone from the fridge. So were the clipped notes. In their place, a pinned photo of her and her sister from years ago, a wedding day, I think. She looked younger, untouched by the weight I'd come to know in her. I told him everything, she said quietly. I nodded. He took it badly, of course. But he didn't fight for me. He just asked me to make sure the neighbors didn't find out. That made us both laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictably hollow. I wasn't brave, she said. Not really. Not until after you left. You were brave, I replied. You just didn't think you had permission. She looked up. And now? Now you do. What changed? Everything and nothing. She still overthinks her texts. I still second-guess whether I'm enough for someone like her. There are mornings we don't speak until noon. Afternoons where she retreats into a quiet I've learned not to take personally. But now, when she reaches for my hand, it's not in secret. Now, when I paint, I leave the door open, and she walks in without knocking. Now, when she says my name, I don't have to wonder what it means. One night, she sat beside me on the couch, her head against my shoulder, and whispered, I didn't know I could start over this late. And I told her, you didn't. You just picked up where you left off. She smiled, eyes closed, and said, so did you.